Welcome to Basic Brewing Radio for Thursday, January 28th, 2010. I'm James Spencer. Here at Basic Brewing Radio, we're all about home brewing. With this week, we get some tips on building a homebrew club website from brewer and IT guy Ryan Thompson-Jewell. Also, Gary Glass, director of the American Homebrewers Association, gives us an update on homebrew legalization efforts. If you're new to homebrewing and would like to get into the hobby for the first time, check out our website, basicbrewing.com, where you can find archives of our audio and video podcasts and our DVDs to walk you through basic and more advanced brewing techniques. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm Basic Brewing, all one word. On Facebook, I am Basic Brewing James, so you can find me at facebook.com/basicbrewing.james. You can find our shows at facebook.com/basicbrewing. Thanks to everybody clicking on the Amazon.com associate link on our basicbrewing.com site. Whenever you think of Amazon, think of us and click on our associate link first. It won't cost you any extra, and you'll be helping us to bring you this show, and we appreciate your support. Also, we have links to Brew Your Own magazine and the American Homebrewers Association on our site, too. I got a couple of deadlines to pass along to you. First, the deadline to submit your data for the Brew Your Own Basic Brewing Radio Collaborative Experiment is February 1st. That's Monday. I've received 2 submissions so far, and I know that there are more out there participating. So don't forget to go to basicbrewing.com/experiment to give us your data. For those of you new to the podcast, we're testing what effect a partial boil has on a batch of extract homebrew and how adding the extract late in the boil also plays a part. So it's a 3-part experiment, and we are looking forward to your results. And I have shipped my bottles to Chris Colby and to Brad Sturgeon, who will be looking at it with, I was going to say a microscope, but I guess he's not going to use a microscope. We'll find out what instruments he's going to use. Also, Chris up in Kansas City wanted to let me know that the entry deadline for the 27th Annual Kansas City Beermeisters Homebrew Competition is a week from Monday. That's February 8th. This year, the theme is Belgium Comes to Kansas City. That sounds like fun. We were up there a couple of years ago, I think, and we had a lot of fun. The weather was treacherous, however, but the homebrew and hospitality was good. And speaking of weather, they're forecasting ice, and lots of it, for northwest Arkansas and eastern Oklahoma. Last year, about this time, in fact, we had it rough. Broken trees and power outages and slick roads. And in fact, Steve was without power for more than a week. And so I keep your fingers crossed for us. Knock on wood or whatever you do for good luck. But anyway, we may need it. I hope we're not coated with ice by the time that you hear this. We got a lot of good stuff this week, so let's jump right into it. Gary Glass sent me an update last week about legislation efforts going on here in the United States to legalize or to continue to legalize our favorite hobby in the states. Only 3 states left. So I asked Gary if he'd come on the show to give us the lowdown. Well, Gary Glass, welcome back to Basic Brewing Radio.
Thanks, James. Always good to be on.
And you've got some good news to share this week. Things are happening. We've got 3 states left in the nation where homebrewing is not at least not explicitly legal, and there's been some movement in those 3 states. Where do you want to start?
Yes, indeed, all 3 states. Why don't we start with Mississippi? Mississippi seems to be the where things are moving the fastest right now. I've been working with a group of homebrewers in Mississippi, along with the Raise Your Pints organization, which is Raise Your Pints has been working on increasing the allowable alcohol in beer in the state, in beers that are sold in Mississippi. But they've also been working on homebrew legalization, and so I've been working directly with Butch Bailey, who's the president of Raise Your Pints, and we set up an email group for leaders within homebrew clubs in Mississippi to be in direct contact with Butch Bailey. and that's been very effective in moving things along in terms of getting homebrew bills announced. And we do have sponsors in both the House and Senate for bills that would legalize homebrewing.
Is it that straightforward? Are the bills, do they just say that essentially homebrewing will be legal?
Well, they closely mirror the federal language that legalized homebrewing back in it went into effect in 1979. The federal bill was passed in 1978. But yes, the bills in Mississippi and Alabama both closely match the language that's in the federal bill, and so not only does that allow for brewing beer and mead and cider legally in those in Mississippi, but it also allows for sharing homebrew at events like such as competitions or club meetings.
Well, that's good. It's good to get that covered in the on the front end, so you don't have to fix it in the tail end.
Right, absolutely. And with the Oklahoma bill, that bill's a little more basic right now. That in Oklahoma, making wine at home is currently legal, and so the current bill just says, adds the words "and beer" to that language. But we're working with the sponsor, Representative Colby Schwartz, on getting that bill amended so that it will match the federal language.
So we've got Mississippi with both raising the cap on commercial alcohol and the homebrewing legalization. Alabama, similar?
Alabama is similar. They have we've got Senate Bill 153, which is sponsored by Larry Dixon. The same bill that we had in the Alabama Senate last year. That's that's been assigned to the Senate Tourism and Marketing Committee, where it was passed last year. So very good chances of getting this bill out of committee again. It's been great working with the homebrewers there over the past few years. Certainly things are frustrating. I've been working with John Little, Brent Warren, and Scott Oberman would be my main contacts in Alabama. And what we experienced last year was that, not a lot of opposition to the bill, but there was a filibuster over totally unrelated legislation in the Alabama Senate, which basically blocked the whole Senate, and so nothing moved. But this year, there's actually the homebrewers there have lined up a House sponsor as well as the Senate sponsor. So if for whatever reason things get bogged down in the Senate, there's a House version of the bill ready to be dropped. So that and having the bill this year having been introduced at the very beginning of the session, whereas last year it was later on in the session before the bill actually got introduced. We've got a much better chance in Alabama this year than we did last year. So I'm pretty excited about our prospects there.
Something similar happened in Utah. I mean, a late introduction the first time and kind of a false start, and then the next year success. Right,
exactly. Getting things rolling. It's always the first thing you've got to do is you got to get yourself a sponsor and then come up with language and whatnot. A lot of times that process is somewhat slow, and so if you don't line up your sponsor before the beginning of the session, then your chances of success are not as great as if the bill were introduced early on, because a lot can happen. State politics is interesting, and it's different in every state, but it's certainly not always as straightforward as you would like it to be. So in this year, with bills introduced in all three of the states where it's not yet legal, already at the very beginning of the session in each state, we have a really good chance of getting homebrewing legalized in at least one, if not all three states this year.
That would be awesome.
It would be awesome.
I mean, it's not. I don't want the homebrewers in the rest of the United States or the world even to feel that this is just a local issue. This has bearing on the image of us as homebrewers throughout the rest of the country and the rest of the world, right? The fact that our hobby can be illegal in some areas, it kind of gives us a black eye as well.
Yeah, well, I totally agree. I think it's something that and the homebrewing community is so tight-knit wherever you go. Like, homebrewers tend to get along very well with other homebrewers, so I would certainly hope that homebrewers in states where it's legal would support homebrewers in states that are trying to get it legalized, and certainly I've seen that. Certainly in Utah, people were certainly following how things were going in Utah last year. So I feel the same way this year, with the community coming together and wanting to make sure that it's legal in all states. And given that it's the federal government defers to the state on alcohol issues. There's nothing that says that those laws can't be changed in states where it is legal. So I think it's really important to stay involved, know how the process works, and be prepared in case somebody decides at some point that it shouldn't be legal to homebrew.
Yeah, we can't be complacent. In Michigan, the state where it is legal to homebrew, there's additional legislation is there as well, right?
Right. There's a bill that would allow homebrew to be served by homebrew clubs meeting at licensed breweries. Currently, if you have a brewery license, you cannot have unlicensed beer served there. So you couldn't have a homebrew club meeting in which homebrew was served at a licensed brewery. And so that's what they're working on now. That the language of the bill is a bit complicated. The Liquor Control Board had some issues with the initial language, so the sponsor of that bill is working on getting that language clarified in a way that the Liquor Control Board can get to a point where they would support it. But that's something that's not really uncommon. The laws defining what you can and can't do with alcoholic beverages usually have to do with taxation, and so having a beverage that's not taxable served at a place that produces alcohol, you can run into kind of some sticky issues there. So, I wouldn't be surprised if that's a common thing across many states, but not really the intention of the law to ban homebrewing at being served in particular places. Mm-hmm.
So, how important is it for homebrewers in these states to get involved, and what function does that serve?
Well, it's really critical. These bills won't get passed unless we have homebrewers who are contacting their representatives and senators. There's not a whole lot of money involved to pay lobbyists and whatnot to push bills through. And especially in states like Mississippi, Oklahoma, and Alabama, where there's pretty strong contingents of anti-alcohol, it's even more important to have people contacting their representatives, making sure they understand who homebrewers are, that they're responsible consumers of alcohol, and that this isn't going to lead to rampant underage drinking or anything like that. It's important to educate representatives, and the more calls that they're getting from their constituents, the more likely they're going to get behind supporting a homebrew bill. In Mississippi right now, there's things like we just sent off an action alert to our members in Mississippi. The bills there are House Bill 732, which is sponsored by Bobby Moak, and Senate Bill 2717, which is sponsored by David Beria. These two bills, these are the homebrew legalization bills. Right now, what we and what Raise Your Pints would like would be for all the homebrewers to find their representative and their senator, and contact them. Ask if they, inform them about these bills. Ask if they support them or don't support them, and then once they have that information, if they know whether their representatives support the bill, let Raise Your Pints know where their position is, because that helps Raise Your Pints target the senators and representatives that need to be focused on in order to make sure that they get the bills passed.
And Raise Your Pints has a website at raiseyourpints.com, I think.
That is correct, raiseyourpints.com, and the contact there would be Butch Bailey. He's the president of Raise Your Pints, and Butch can be reached at butch@raiseyourpints.com.
Well, I appreciate it, Gary, and I hope to be checking in with you again soon with some continuing good news.
Sure, and I've got a post up on a blog post on our website, homebrewersassociation.org, that kind of goes into a little more detail on what's happening in Mississippi, Oklahoma, and Alabama. And we also have some specific government affairs pages. So if anybody's interested in looking at what the law in their state is for homebrewing, they can find it on our website.
Awesome. Thanks, Gary.
Hey, thank you so much, James.
Well, thanks again to Gary. You can check out his blog at homebrewersassociation.org for all the details. And I've also posted a link to that on our Facebook page. I've been trying to use the facebook.com/basicbrewing page for updates on things happening, such as that. So good luck to everybody involved in the legalization efforts. So if you're not involved, get involved. Contact your state representative and let them know that you brew and hopefully you vote and that you're watching what they're doing. Okay, Ryan Thompson-Jewell has been a listener to this show for quite a while. We've been trading emails back and forth fairly frequently over time. Ryan is a web developer, and when he contacted me asking if I'd like to talk about how to put together effective websites for homebrew clubs, I thought it was a great idea. Well, Ryan Thompson-Jewell, welcome to Basic Brewing Radio.
Thank you, James.
Now, you are a home brewer, but you're also a techie guy. So talk about your background, about your home brewing side of things, and about what you do for a living as well.
Okay. I've been brewing for probably 4 or 5 years. Friend at work got me interested in the hobby, and he was a extract and partial mash brewer, and that's what I am. I'm not quite doing all grain yet. I'm slowly kind of learning about all grain, but I'm still partial mash, extract and partial mash. As far as my IT background, I've been doing IT and web programming for about 13, 15 years, and I work for the Mayo Clinic and support a variety of different websites and publishing systems at the clinic.
Nowadays, you can't be, it seems like you can't be a legitimate entity without having a website. And homebrew clubs are no exception to that. I mean, part of being an organization or part of being a club is to communicate with your members effectively and to make it an interactive experience, in my opinion. And you're going to give us some tips today on if you have a homebrew club or if you're thinking about starting a homebrew club, which we've talked about on the show before, how you can make a web presence that is effective and reasonably priced. So, first of all, why would a homebrew club want to build a site?
Well, a couple reasons. It's a good communication tool, both to potential members about what the club is, what the dues are, what the meeting schedule is, and it's a communication tool they can use between the members as well. It can also aid to collaborate things like events, competitions, meeting schedule. Everybody knows when the meeting is, what time it is, where it is. And for some sites, they can also accept dues, maybe via PayPal or later on, there's some commercial club software sites that you can use that do a lot of different payment options and can track the dues for you.
And if, say, if new homebrewers are moving into an area, they can do a Google search or a Bing search, I guess.
Yeah, and if you're listed on the AHA, if you're in an AHA club, you can be listed on their site as well.
There you go. So I used to be in website design, as we were talking about before we started recording, back when I worked for the giant corporation that I did. But things were a lot easier back then, or at least were not easier, but a lot more basic, because the bells and whistles weren't where they are today. Back then it was just put up a page with some information and links, and those linked to other pages with static information. But it's a different world nowadays, and there are a lot of features that you can build fairly easily into a website. So what are those features that you would say are most beneficial to a club website?
Couple that we get a lot of usage for with our club. I took over our club's website about a year and a half ago. Our webmaster was moving to a different town, and I had just joined and said, hey, I'll take it over. And we added a few things. We added a calendar. We added a way to easily post recipes. Those are two things that were nice for the club. We also, I created the ability for another person in the club to help manage the website, so that it took the burden off of me from always trying to post articles or pictures or things. And then I slowly was able to add the ability to the site for other members to post images in the image gallery as well.
Yeah, and that's important. I mean, it is work to keep up a website, and we found with even clients at the corporate level, they came in and they would say, our section of the business needs a website. Okay, what do you need on the website? And we would build the website, and they would update it, or they would have us update it for a short period of time, and then they would get busy, and then the website would grow cobwebs. That's a big danger with designing and maintaining websites, is that if you don't keep the content fresh, it's not relevant at all. So you bring up a good point. If you do build a website, delegate responsibility to more than one person, so it's not just that one person's job to keep the thing updated.
Yeah, we also added a member directory too, which helps members log in to see the information, and they can get addresses and phone numbers if there's a new member that just joined and they need to contact them, or they don't have their email address. That helps as well. And
you would think that maybe a forum for posting questions and answering questions.
Yeah, forums can also help you with discussions around planning different events. We used a Google group recently to discuss our competition that we're having January 30th. So that way, too, it's also the discussion's captured where discussion over email might not always be captured, and it's hard for somebody just to join in the conversation since they might have not read or not gotten the email. Whereas on the Google group, the discussion about the competition and how we're going to organize it is all recorded in that thread, that forum thread.
And we can't forget email.
Email newsletters, yes.
I'd like to forget email sometimes, but but we can't. It's an important tool, and that can give you the push technology, so to speak, to kind of reach out and touch your members as well.
Good to communicate upcoming events, keep people in the reminder that about the upcoming events as well.
So what are the options as far as setting this thing up? I mean, back in the day, back when I first started, if you wanted a website, you were talking about thousands of dollars for site design and serving it and maintaining it and all that. But nowadays, you can do it for nothing, right?
Yeah, there's a whole variety of different options. There's, probably at least 100 plus options out there, from free tools to fairly inexpensive hosting options to other options that can get, pretty expensive, but they also do a lot. A few of the free options out there that you can kind of start with are Google has lots of different properties that they own, like Blogger.com. It is a Google property that you can set up blogs, free blogs. They have lots of different modules or widgets, whatever you want to call them, that you can add to your blog. They also have Google Calendar, which you can share then to make your calendar public. You can also use Google Groups for discussions. And the nice thing about using a single provider like that is that your same login would get you into all of those options. So if you do have several of you, or even all the members, if they all have a Google account, you can get into the blogs. They can all contribute. You can have multiple contributors to the blog. They can all see and add events to the calendar, and they can all discuss things in the forums or the groups. And Yahoo has a lot of the same features that Google does. They're also free. Their group site is a little more integrated with the blog and the calendar than Google is, but it's a very similar setup, and it's all free.
So it would be easy if you stayed within the group, like either Google or Yahoo. Can you integrate those tools in a very user-friendly way into the one site that way?
Yeah, both Google and Yahoo, you can add the calendar. For example, you can add Google's calendar really to any website you want with some HTML, but I believe they do have some widgets that help that integration. And same thing with Yahoo. It makes it a one-stop shop for the blog, the calendar, and the group discussion.
Now, you mentioned, you sent me an outline. You mentioned in those sites, the free sites, you can actually get a little bit of money from your site by putting ads on those sites.
That's correct. I'm not that familiar with Yahoo. I set up a Google group in Yahoo to test out the features with the calendar and things, but I do have several blog accounts through Blogger.com, and one of those is our club blog, and I was able to add a Google Ads to that blog with our we have our own website for the club that we have ads on as well, and we can use the same ad account on both Blogger.com, our site, and any other blogs that our members have, and we can generate a little bit of revenue for the ads.
And depending, emphasis may be on little bit.
Right, yeah, it's pretty minimal. I think for about 10 months we've made maybe $15 worth of ad impressions.
Yeah. Well, it's better than poking the eye with a sharp stick, I guess. So, but there are some drawbacks to the free stuff.
Yeah, a few of the drawbacks with using the free products, you can't always control the integration. Some of them you might not be able to use your own domain. Some of them you can, like Blogger.com. I believe you can use your own domain for the blog. You also might have trouble trying to administer, especially if you mix different sites that aren't really integrated. Like if you mix Yahoo's group with Google's, something else, they might not always integrate the users, so you have to sign into one and then sign into another one. So it might not be the best user experience for either you, the administrator, or even your club members. So it just depends on which free tools you use. Sometimes free tools aren't always free forever. They'll be bought, or if they had an ad an ad model where they provide ads to pay for you using the feature, you might not be able to get rid of those ads, especially if you don't like how they are displayed. So there's a few drawbacks. You might not be able to create the same look and feel across the different products. So a user trying to use your site that either might be a member or might not, they might get a little lost if the look and feel is not quite the same.
Mm-hmm. And those ads, you never know. It may be for objectionable material or something like that.
Right, that's correct. Yep. And then the support options might not be there. If a user is trying to use your site or another administrator that's trying to put content in the site, if you're not available and they can't ask you a question, or if you don't know and you need help, there may not always be a support model there that you can utilize to get that help.
So if you want your own domain name, how do you go about doing that?
Well, if you're going to register your own domain name, you can register it through a host. However, I would not recommend doing that for a couple of reasons. A lot of the hosting providers will use domain registrars that are you can't always control, or you don't pick, so you don't know who they're registering your domain with, because there's two parts of a website. There's your domain, and then there's your hosting account. And they're really separate. It's kind of like having a 1-800 number and then pointing it at your home phone or your cell phone. You know, you have your contract with your cell phone company, but you could point that 1-800 number anywhere. And that's kind of like a domain name. You can point it anywhere. You can point it at any host. And when you register that domain name through a host, you can, especially if they're not telling you who they're registering it through, you'll go through, you'll register, you'll create your account on the host, and they've created your account on the domain registrar. Mm. So if you ever need to change those settings, you either might not be able to, or you might have to contact your host. Or worse, I've had a friend, he let his domain expire, and the domain registrar that the hosting provider used charged an exorbitant amount of money, about 10 times the registration fee.
Wow.
To reactivate that, which a lot of the domain registration companies like GoDaddy, they don't have those kind of practices. So I would recommend using a registration company like GoDaddy or Register.com, one that's pretty reputable, and register your domain through that first and then sign up for a hosting account. Now, GoDaddy also offers hosting as well. So, I mean, that's up to you. Look at their options. But most of the hosting companies, as you're going through their account creation wizard, will ask you if you already have a domain or not. The big difference is once you register a domain, you're just going to park it. Since you don't have a hosting account, you'll sign up for a hosting account somewhere, and then you'll need to go back into GoDaddy, and there's usually an email that your host sends you that says, here's 2 IP addresses that you'll need to change your domain registration to point at our servers for your website. And then you go back into like GoDaddy, for example, and edit those. So it's a little more work on your end, but in the long run, they'll be more beneficial. Especially, I use GoDaddy. They have a lot of great features. They'll send you reminder emails, things like that. They won't just kind of let your domain expire.
Yeah, they're good about that. In fact, they let you know way in advance, which is handy. When you're after you've got your domain registered, how do you find a good host if you want to go that direction?
Hosting companies, they offer a whole smorgasbord of options. Usually if you look at their different hosting packages, it could be 3 printed pages of features that a lot of them you'll have to go through. They're pretty common features as far as the number of emails you can have, the disk space, the bandwidth, things like that, which for a club, especially if you're, around 20, 30 members, give or take, you're not going to have a ton of pictures. You're not going to have a ton of emails that you need or even bandwidth. So most of the accounts that you'll see will probably suit your needs. Unless you really do have a large user base or, get a lot of traffic, I guess. And a lot of times you can upgrade pretty easily to add on bandwidth or disk space as needed. So that's I wouldn't put too much stake in those. The next kind of grouping of features you'll see are programming languages that they offer, PHP, .NET, Cold Fusion. Unless you have someone in the club that's a programmer or even a couple, you might not want to rely on just one person. That also I wouldn't put a lot of stake in unless you have a programmer in your club. The next grouping of kind of features you'll see are different software packages they offer with the accounts. And these will range from anything from like blogs, forum, content management, image galleries, e-commerce packages. You'll see also some site statistics software that will give you some pretty minimalistic reports on your traffic. And that I would get really familiar with. Those options, I would look at each one and try and find out a little bit about it, because usually they're packages that are commercially available, and many hosts will offer either the same software or one that's slightly different, but they're all things that you can go out and research independent of whatever that host offers. So, for example, one content management system you'll see out there that is popular is .NET Nuke is one of them. Joomla is another one. Those are both popular content management systems that hosts will offer. And if you look into those, they have a variety of features. Each one has a community that's creating add-ons for them. So I would look at what your club wants for features. Do you want a calendar? Do you want a forum? Would you like an image gallery? Things like that, and kind of make a matrix of, okay, this host offers these things. I looked into, Joomla, let's say, and I can find a calendar, a newsletter, a forum module, or the host offers a forums if it's not included with Joomla, and say, okay, that's a host that's got a potential. And you can evaluate different hosts. So with those criteria. So if you like Joomla and you like the interface and you look at a couple different hosts, you can start comparing prices. And then even if you pick one host today, if within a year you say, gosh, I've had some customer service problems with this host, keep that information. That research isn't a throwaway, because if you ever want to move, if you have your Joomla CMS account at host A, you should be able to easily have the host either export it, or there's different add-ons that will help you migrate that to another host as well. So once you get familiar with a certain product line, it'll help you evaluate your hosting options a little bit better.
So, it sounds like it takes some research before you get your credit card out and go to a web hosting company. And you need to go in with a list of objectives of what you actually need on the website, right? Because the checkout, like for instance on GoDaddy, the checkout thing, it's kind of like, I kind of compare it to trying to leave a casino.
Yeah.
It's easy to get into the casino, but you can't seem to find your way out of the casino because they always put more stuff in front of you. Do you want this added on? Do you want that added on? And sometimes it's kind of confusing to get to the button where you can just check out with just the stuff that you need. So the more research that you go into beforehand, the better off that you'll be when it comes time to actually pull the trigger on the transaction.
Yeah, that's right, James. Yep. And you'll see a lot of the same features offered across the different hosts. So once you do look into a certain software, you can reuse that knowledge over and over again. It's a great experience, and yeah, it will take you. I would spend probably at least a week looking into different options. Each host has slightly different control panels as well to administer your account, and there's a couple that are pretty common control panels that you'll see over and over. cPanel is one of them. And a lot of them offer simple site builder options that are very wizard-like in creating a page, but once you create the page, they're kind of this arcane system to try and modify the page again, where other hosts will offer an actual CMS, like Joomla, .NET Nuke. So there's also a scale of different software packages within a certain feature set as well. So, not every form add-on will be the same. Some of them will be less feature-rich than others.
So if all this, if you're sitting out there and you're completely confused about any of this stuff, and you don't want to know anything about building a website, or you know what features you want, but you don't want to get your hands kind of dirty in building it, one of the other options is that you could find someone or recruit somebody into your club who knows how to build these things themselves from scratch, like Ryan. I mean, you know how to do this. You do this for a living, but what are some tips that you can give if that happens? I mean, for instance, in my opinion, you don't want to give all of the keys over to one person. It seems like to me you'd want to split the responsibilities as far as the nuts and bolts, because everybody has their different ways of setting a site up, right? Yeah,
if you're going to install your own solution, is one option. If you have someone that has some programming skills or even some computer skills, a lot of times there's open source software or even pay software you can download, and with minimal configuration, you can get them up and running and run them yourselves. As long as you make sure multiple people have the FTP accounts and the accounts to get into the control panels for these sites, it's not too bad. I set up our site with an open source CMS product, and another person in the club has access to edit all of the pages and things like that. He can create pages. There's still some functions that me as a programmer I can do that if I was gone he wouldn't be able to do, but the site is fairly easy to run from his standpoint, is creating pages and things. So yeah, if there's someone you trust to set this up, I'd make sure that if they leave on vacation for 3 months, you just have the all the logins that you need to get into the host. Make sure your host is backing up that account. If you're installing software on the site, make sure they're backing that up. A lot of times you'll need a database if you're going to set up a commercial or even open source product. A lot of them will use MySQL database, which comes with most hosting accounts. And it also might require a little bit more time from the person installing it on a maintenance standpoint if you need to add features, things like that, install patches.
So if you don't want to recruit someone who knows what they're doing and you don't want to learn it yourself, if you've got a checkbook or a credit card, you can find some solutions to help you there as well, right?
Yes, there's a few websites out there that specialize in hosting clubs club websites. One of them, for example, a coworker has used Club Express. And if you look at their feature pages, the printed pages, I believe, was about 6 pages worth of features. It's a very robust club option, and the pricing on a per member basis isn't that much at all. There is a fairly hefty setup fee for Club Express, but even myself and our co-webmaster, we were looking at it it's very tempting because it has a lot of features that if I was going to add to the site or find open source software or even a hosted option, it would take a while to integrate all of the features properly like this one solution has. They have a lot of features around managing the dues and the renewal. They have forums, they have content management. So it's a very robust option. But it does cost a little bit to set up, pretty steep setup fee, but in a per month member fee, which I believe it's up to like 50 members. It's about $5 a month, a year per member. Not steep at all, but it was about $150 setup fee at Club Express. So, that's a decision a club's got to make is, okay, we can have a couple of people administering this and get all these features, but we got to maybe put in a little bit extra for the setup for club dues.
Well, $150 for a website. That's pretty reasonable. If you were going to start from scratch and pay somebody to do it. So, it's all in the value that you put in it, I guess. And a good website is a good value for the club. But you say that there is another solution that is a pay solution that has an ad-supported option as well.
That's correct. The Wild Apricot is another club website out there, wildapricot.com. And it has a tiered package where one of the tiers is a free ad-supported tier. So they're showing their ads. They're supporting your your usage with the ads. And there's a few restrictions, features that it didn't have, that the free one didn't have, where the next tier, I believe, was about $25 a month. So still not too expensive, depending on how many people you have in the club. If you have 10 people, okay, maybe $25 is, might be a little much. If you have, 20, 30 people in the club, it makes it a little bit less. So, and that's the thing, for not having the headaches of trying to find all these hosting options or to install something, it's a pretty good price. And a lot of these companies will add new features, year after year. So you're not, some of your hosts, they might upgrade Joomla, and Joomla will have new features, but they'll add things. But especially if you install your own, then it's you maintaining those features. So the pay options, the pay solutions are a good fit as well.
Yeah, sometimes these sites are free and they're worth every penny. So, whereas if you pay a little bit, you can get something with more features and less headaches, and you can spend more time drinking homebrew and making homebrew, which is what it's all about.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Well, Ryan, I appreciate your help, and I hope that the clubs out there who are maybe struggling with their websites have some different options now to improve, or some ideas to improve their websites, because these days it's all about the internet, and a good website can help improve the club experience for everybody involved. I appreciate your help. Thanks, Ryan.
Sure. Thanks, James.
Well, thanks again to Ryan. Ryan says one way to figure out what you need in your club's website is to check out the sites of other clubs. The homebrewersassociation.org site has a list of clubs across the country that you can check out. And if you have any questions for Ryan, you can reach him through the contact link on razebrewing.com. That's R-A-Z-E brewing.com. If you have brewing questions for me, or show suggestions, or want to say howdy, write to james@basicbrewing.com or just fill out the contact form on basicbrewing.com. And please don't forget to tell us where you're from. You can find our 2010 Brewers logbooks on our site. They're still here. They're going, though. And we've also got our new Reinheitsgebot is a 4-letter word shirts on our shop as well. Check out our homebrewing DVDs, Introduction to Extract Home Brewing, Stepping into All-Grain, Low-Tech Lagering and Decoction Mashing, and Introduction to Wine Kits. And you can check out our combo deals to save you a couple of bucks as well. And you can see a listing of the fine folks across the country who sell our DVDs on basicbrewing.com. And if there isn't a vendor in your area, you can order them online in our online shop at basicbrewingshop.com. Thanks to everybody who's continued to click on our Amazon.com link. We appreciate the support there, as usual. Our featured products this week that were purchased through the link are 40 Acres and a Fool, How to Live in the Country and Still Keep Your Sanity, and SciTech Pro Flight Yoke with 3-lever throttle. Or maybe it's SciTech Pro Flight Yoke with 3-lever throttle. And also, that went with that. I'm assuming the same person bought the SciTech rudder pedals. That sounds like a fun thing. They look very cool. Thanks again, everybody. And remember, I can't tell who bought what, so no worries there. Just click on the Amazon.com logo on our site the next time you feel like Amazon shopping, and we greatly appreciate your support. Don't forget, you can join the American Homebrewers Association and subscribe to Brew Your Own magazine through our associate links, too. That's all until next week. Until then, thanks for listening, everybody. I'm James Spencer. Production help for Basic Brewing Radio and our website is provided by Kelly Dotson. Basic Brewing Radio is a production of Active Voicing. Talk to you next time, everybody. So long.